Hi everyone, I'm Jason DeHart, and I am honored once more to be traversing the stars. Usually I'm on Words, Images, and Worlds, but delighted to jump in and to be talking with the creative team of Amanda Deibert and Kat Staggs. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Well, absolutely a pleasure, and thank you for joining from the same Zoom space. I can tell the collaboration is strong with you.
You know, we try.
Yeah, yeah. I usually mention a couple of titles. I know that both of you have worked on Wonder Woman in one way or another.
Mhm.
Amanda, I know you from work in a lot of worlds that have to do with animation, like Darkwing Duck, for example, and Teen
Yes.
Titans. But then you have also worked in series,
Uh-huh.
which I believe has connected you with the world of John Carpenter. Is this true?
This is true.
Mhm.
I thought as much. I thought as much. That's Suburban Screams, I believe.
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah,
wrote the episode that John directed, which was really fun.
yeah, yeah. And Kat, you have worked, as I mentioned, in the world of Wonder Woman. You've
Mhm.
worked on Orphan Black, X-Files, Tales from Halloween Night, just a variety of creating from the two of you. So glad to be talking about your collaboration with Storm King.
Always anything they ever want, I will do. I love working with them.
They are kind of the best to work with from a creator perspective.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I talked with Sandy Carpenter on an episode of my show a couple of months back, and then I'm such a fan of kind of the world that they've created that I was at a GalaxyCon and had to take the time to meet John Carpenter and have a photo with him just because I mean I know like the teenage actors are there and everything, but just to tap into that decades of storytelling that he
Mhm.
represents,
Right.
very very cool things, very scary things too.
Right.
What led you both to the world of comics and creating?
I'll let you
Oh.
go first because you've been doing
Uh
it longer.
Comics. Well, I guess I could kind of say I kind of backdoored into comics. I started doing trading cards, and I was doing card art for Tops and like Rittenhouse and all those guys. I was doing sketch cards, and I was also doing like the actual card art themselves. And then and going to conventions and getting to know everyone and putting my stuff in front of people. Um but I was at Jim Lee asked me if I what I was working on it, and I told him I had just finished some stuff with Lucasfilm. I did some lithographs and some other work for them, and asked me if I wanted to do some comics, and I was like, yes, I do. So that's how I got in there.
Nice. Amanda, same question.
So for me, I was an actress and then also a screenwriter, television writer. But then I started dating a comic book illustrator,
Hmm
and
hmm
while I was writing for TV, and then I started I was doing some stuff, some like YouTube videos and content for a comedy website that's now defunct, but I started writing these like weekly web comics that then the comic book illustrator I was dating was illustrating, and they were just like funny, embarrassing stories from my life. So it would be like a time that I was hiking and ended up falling off a mountain with my pants around my ankle when I tried to go to the restroom, or like, weird things that happened when I had house parties or whatever. Just like deeply relatable things that have happened to all of us, embarrassing myself, and weekly strips. And we did that for about 2 years.
Mhm.
And then I was like submitting to some anthologies and different things because I found that I really liked writing in the comic style, like in panels and that kind of thing, and that it's very similar to TV writing in a lot of ways because it is very visual. You're writing for show don't tell kind of things. So it was an easy transition for me, but then I also liked that there's kind of more freedom when you're doing it in comics than there even is in TV and film writing. And then so I was doing that, and then I made this YouTube video I was orphaned when I was young, and as that is very hilarious, I made a comic video, a comedy video for Father's Day, and it was this really deadpan video about how to deal with being an orphan on Father's Day. And so I was talking to the camera, but slowly throughout the video, I start morphing into Batman, but I never comment on it. So I'm just slowly turning into Batman, and then by the end of the little short, I'm Batman. And apparently it went around like the DC offices and they found it funny as well. And so then one of the editors reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I've seen, your web comics, I've seen some of your anthologies, and this video was really, really funny. Would you like to try writing a Wonder Woman story?" And I was like, "Oh, most iconic female superhero of all time. Sure, let's start there. What could go wrong?"
Right, right.
Not intimidating at all. And so luckily, I got myself together after being a little intimidated by that, and they kept hiring me afterwards, so I didn't completely fuck it up.
Yeah. Now, Kat, as you're working with Amanda, looking
Mhm.
at the script and the page, anything about the process of capturing the visual of what she's sharing there that you'd like to mention?
Uh, well, I gotta say, I Amanda is one of the writers I most enjoy working with. I mean,
I
she
pay her
is
to say
so well. And I know it probably has a lot to do with our regular shorthand that we have, but she's very clear in what her vision is, and then and gives me room to do my vision. And so far I feel like it's worked really well.
hopefully.
So but it's I always it's I find sometimes I'm like, do I get what this person's meaning? But I never really have that problem with Amanda, and it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine there aren't a lot of rewrites and re-illustrating that comes back. I imagine that that's a pretty seamless process for the two of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
for the
mean,
most
and
part.
it's also nice too, though, that I can just say, "Hey, would you mind looking at this? Is this what you mean?" And it's like a 5-minute conversation instead of like a 3-day email exchange between multiple people.
Hmm.
So that helps a lot.
Yeah. Amanda, anything about the differences? You mentioned TV writing, and as you were talking about that, I was thinking about some of the similarities, but any of the differences, the way that you approach comics versus television writing.
I mean, yes, like both mediums are like have their big, I guess I'd say, I don't know if pros and cons is they just have a different way that you kind of have to approach it. In that with comics, you're really thinking about the moment within the moment. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of grabbing like the most interesting, juiciest moment from, if you and I are having a conversation that's going on for several minutes, it's all condensed into maybe one panel or two panels, versus in screenwriting, in television and film, you get to let that breathe and play out just a little bit longer. So it's the fun of comics is just, it's really snappy, it's really fast paced, you're just going for like the big visuals, and the pacing is about thinking about like the page turns, or like when something should be a splash to really hit us with the exciting moment, or the big character introduction, or the reveal, or whatever. So you're approaching it from a very art minded place of like what is going to look visually interesting, what's going to give the artist a lot of fun. I mean, I'm always thinking about like what would be cool and fun and exciting for the artist to draw.
1,000 rabbits.
I mean, yeah, sometimes I'm an asshole too. Like, lots of rats. But and so that's the fun. And then in the same way, in film, you have sound that you can play with in a way that you don't get to in comics. And like, especially if you're doing horror or something, that can add such an additional element in noise, breathing, silence, and then, thinking about the differences and how you translate that in a silent but more visual medium. Um, it's fun. You get to play with both. I would be sad to stop doing either because they're both really fun worlds to play in.
Now, how did Death Mask, which we're talking about the second volume of, how did that project come to be?
So Sandy King Carpenter approached us about it. She had an idea, and then she and I started talking and kind of fleshing that out a little more. What could that look like? What would it be? And then kind of created these fictional characters and this idea of this serial killer and this detective, and how their worlds get in the first one, how their worlds are intertangled, and neither of them really maybe know the extent of how much, or at least the detective doesn't. And then in the second volume, it's about them being forced to come together again and deal with the fact that they've both, pretty actively tried to kill each other, but now have to work together. So it's a really fun dynamic. But yes, it was really fun to brainstorm and talk with Sandy, and then have her be like, "Okay, go play," and then get to just do all my dark, twisted things that I enjoy doing, and then seeing Kat turn it into beautiful art.
Mm-hmm. Lots of blood.
How does one? What was that, sorry?
I was just saying lots of blood.
Oh yeah, that leads into my next question, which is how does one be scary in a comic book? How have you made your way into that world of visualizing?
I gotta say I am quite a bit of a movie and TV nerd, and I live in that stuff all the time, and I try to absorb visuals, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting way to frame that, or that's an interesting way to do that shot. Can that translate to a comic when I'm watching something, and I'm like, oh, I could actually draw that I could do that camera angle and do that. And I try and pick up on those moments of tension, and while I'm watching something, and try and visually figure out how I can convey that on the page. So I hope I pull it off, but uh, you know, it's like Amanda was saying, it's like there's like you have this much time on a comic panel as opposed to a movie, and so I'm trying to grab that hit, and I'm constantly making little punches. So hopefully it works.
Yeah, yeah. Amanda, I hope we didn't scare you away for a moment there.
Oh, no.
I was so scared by her talking about it. I just couldn't handle it.
I totally understand. I get that. I get that. Now you've had the chance to create volume one, but we now have volume two. Ichor Azure, is that right?
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thanks. So please tell us about the process of getting to extend from not just one volume, but unfolding the story now into this follow-up.
So what's been really fun about it for me is, like volume one is very much its own self-contained story, although it ends in a bit of a cliffhanger that volume two starts to resolve. But it was about, Los Angeles really comes into play in both books, and it was about a certain side of LA, and I mean of the world, but of LA, which is, maybe the more dark underbelly, and then also the kind of people that disappear into society because society is actively not paying attention to them, which is how our serial killer is able to get everywhere that she can get because nobody is paying attention. Like nobody is noticing her, even when she's right in front of them, in all these different personas that she puts on. So it becomes about the world of people who are, working in our ice cream parlors or cleaning our houses, or all of these different jobs that she's able to slip into and nobody's paying attention. And in volume two, we go to kind of the other side of LA a bit, which is that killings are happening now in the upper echelons of society, the children of politicians, Instagram influencers, starlets. And so it's the other end of the spectrum as far as like what happens in the city and who lives in the city. And then, it becomes this idea of like, the police trying to go undercover and then realizing that they don't know what they don't know, which is that it's easy to clock that they don't belong in this world because there's so many unspoken rules that you only know if you're in it. And so once again, the only person that can get in is the people that we don't pay attention to. And so it's been fun to kind of get to play with like LA at large as a big part of both of these books kind of going through, which is where we live. So,
Yeah.
I was going to say or ask, as a creative family, I imagine that's also interesting and kind of a way that you can explore. Are there parts of the book, are there embedded pieces of your life that you like to add in and kind of personalize?
I mean, in a way, I think anything that you're creating has parts of you. I mean, this book is also a lot about, well, volume one especially is a lot about motherhood, uh, in a kind of intense, really fucked up way. And we're moms, and I think about, like, what if somebody had done something awful to my kid and I didn't feel like justice was served? How far would I go? Well, maybe as far as a serial killer who feels like she's in her right. I find that relatable.
I just did that on Tuesday.
No confessions.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
That's right. That's right. We have entered the confession aspect of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so I think in those ways, there's always parts of life and parts of, maybe like pool floats that we've had in our house or whatever the cat's drawn.
I usually try and slip in little humorous things, and some of our pool floats have made it into
with corpses on them in the book,
right,
but they don't have corpses on them here.
Bloody, but,
yeah.
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. I always enjoy hearing kind of the story of what goes into the panel, and this was a family member's necklace, or so love the idea of like, here are the pool floaties that might or might not have corpses on them in the book. Well, in terms of your creative process, I'll ask where we can find the book, and I'll ask some of those questions. But in terms of the creative process, where does that start and end? What does a typical day to day on a book like this look like for you two?
Well, I mean, it starts with the script for sure. So, for me, it's about, I mean, the nice thing is Sandy really does offer a lot of freedom. So it was like once we had talked and I was kind of like, here's what I'm thinking. And she was like, just go for it. So, I outline it for myself so that I kind of know where I'm going. And then I give myself the freedom to also deviate as I'm writing a little bit. But I personally am one of those writers who likes to know where I'm going to end up before I start writing anything. So I like to spend a lot of time thinking about that. And before I write, I know some people like to just write and see where it takes them, but I'm definitely like, I want to kind of know where I'm going. And then I get the script written. Then I pass it off to Storm King, make sure that all looks cool to them. They say, that's great.
Then they pass it to me.
I just let Kat go with God, and I move on to whatever else I'm writing.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Basically, then I take it and I, read through it and and then go back and do my page layout thumbnails. But I also, I tend to really like to, especially the lead characters, like to, figure out what the lead characters look like and flesh them out a little bit. I tend to, and especially in the second book, there were so many characters. I had to make myself a character map. I had to, so I didn't mix people up. But yeah, I like to give, each character that I do in books like this, some kind of unique traits or some kind of something that's unique to them. And it just makes it interesting for me. And it also just by the end of this book, they start feeling like family. So, because I've spent so much time with them, so yeah, I tend to do stuff like that even if it's just for me.
When you also do a lot of research on like the kill, I've got a lot of really, I guess I'll call them creative kills across these two books. And which is cool and fun, but then it means that poor Kat has to, because then she's doing research of like, okay, if someone got murdered in this really bizarre way, like what would that look like? How would the corpse look after something like that has happened? And like, how would the wound of this particular, like if you get a golf club shoved through your skull, or if you have a body part, cut off and put into a banana split, or like whatever the case maybe, like how that looks. So then I'm always like, oh, sorry, because she'll do a lot of, I'm sure we're on watch list. She'll do a lot of research to see how it's gonna
look. My anatomy lessons have come in really handy.
Yeah, definitely. And part of the process of getting into the visual, right? If it's on the page, you have to figure out those
how
dynamics.
That looks. Yep.
Yeah.
And what's the best angle to show that disembowelment? So.
And that way you get to constantly challenge each other with character maps and interesting Google searches.
Yep.
I love the range of the creating that you've both done, from Wonder Woman to Darkwing Duck to Storm King. That's quite a span. Where can listeners find out more about you? And I hope that the collaboration with Storm King continues. I hope there are many more books on the way from you two.
Thank you. We're always happy to work with them, so we hope so as well.
Yeah.
You can find me at amandadeibert.com. I'm also on all the socials at Amanda Deibert. Instagram being the only one that's at Amanda Deibert official. But yeah, I'm kind of everywhere online, easy to Google.
Yeah, same. I've got catstaggs.com, but then again, also all the socials is either Cat Staggs or Cat Staggs official. Yeah, that's where I be.
Nice. Well, many thanks to you both. Did we?